and welcome to Spotlight Morris County, the program that brings you news and information from the greater Morris County area. Students at CCM, members of the community, people doing good things. I am your host, Daniil Barkov, and today we have as our guest Professor Mark Washburne. Professor Washburne teaches history and political science here at the County College of Morris. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you, Daniil.
Now, I understand you are both a teacher of history, and you did as well teach political science.
Right, yes.
Now, can you explain to us how political science and history overlap with each other?
Yeah, a lot of political events impact history. A lot of what we study about is who our presidents were, if you're talking about American history, or who the kings were, or who the prime minister of Great Britain is. So a lot of times political events impact our history. History, however, is broader. Sometimes history is what the average person's doing. It's not necessarily what the president's doing or what Congress is doing. So you could have historic events like the Great Depression, which is more about the average person. Although politics played a role, because then you had Franklin Delano Roosevelt and the New Deal trying to address those issues.
Now, for students such as myself, how can young people get involved in the political process and just basically educate themselves on everything?
Well, my first suggestion is get a newspaper or read about what's happening in the world online, or start watching the news and informing yourself about the issues that people are looking at. And then if you are so inclined, you can get involved on the local level, volunteer to help a mayor run a race or a councilman, or if you're more interested in the state level, you could work for a state candidate, or if you're interested in the federal elections, you could work for a congressional candidate or a Senate candidate, or if it's every 4 years, you could work for a presidential candidate.
So it's fairly easy to get involved on like the local level for young people in the political process. They can just help run, help with basically with people running for positions.
Right, yeah. People are always looking for volunteers, and young people are always needed to, call and, answer phones at headquarters and things like that. So there's a lot they can do.
Now, so you also teach history as well.
I do.
So what is your favorite aspect about teaching history?
Well, I love teaching history. I can't believe people pay me to tell them stories about what happened in the past, or a little story about Abraham Lincoln's life or George Washington's life. So to me, it's just a joy. Historians usually come in two different people. We have one group that love to do research, and they're in the libraries, and they're the ones who are writing stories. And then we have other historians who like to be storytellers. I'm more of a storyteller. That's how I kind of got involved in it. But I also like doing the research part of it too. I wrote some books about my cousin who was a Civil War congressman, and I spent a lot of time going through the libraries and going through his papers and trying to get the details to write a biography on him.
Now, personally, I am a history buff myself. It is my favorite subject, hands down.
Mine too.
So great minds think alike. What would you say is your favorite area in history to study and or teach?
Well, I mostly teach American history at this point, and because I did so much research on my cousin Elihu Washburne, who was a Civil War congressman, that's my primary interest. He was a congressman before, during, after the Civil War, so I spent a lot of time writing about the Civil War. In fact, here at County College of Morris, I teach a class called Civil War and Reconstruction every fall.
Can you get more into about your family members and the history that you have?
Yeah, Elihu Washburne was somebody who grew up in poverty in Maine. He was one of 10 children, and because of the Great Depression of 1837, he was hurt in Maine, so he decided to join his younger brother, who was living in Wisconsin. Elihu ends up going to Galena, Illinois, and he soon opened up a law practice and was traveling around the state, where he meets another young lawyer named Abraham Lincoln.
Wow.
They become good friends. In fact, in doing research for my books, I found close to 100 letters that Lincoln and Washburne had written to each other, starting in the 1840s when they were both lawyers, really up until the day Abraham Lincoln died. My cousin's a congressman, and he was actually coming back from Appomattox at the end of the war and wrote to Lincoln about his experience there. So And then my cousin also was involved with Ulysses S. Grant. What happened when the Civil War started, my cousin's a congressman from Galena, and he called a meeting to recruit soldiers to fight in the war. And who shows up at this Galena meeting but the only West Pointer who had previously served in Mexico, was cited for bravery, though he went to California, maybe drank a little bit too much, left the Army, and was working for his father's tannery shop in Galena. And his name was Ulysses S. Grant. And my cousin realized this guy is going places, so he promoted him. And the fact that he was already friends with Abraham Lincoln helped Grant move up through the ranks. And so my cousin's at several different battlefields.
Now, how many books have you written?
Well, I have written on the same person, but I have 7 books. This is volume 1 that I published in 2000, and this is volume 7, which was published in 2016. And in between, there's 5 other books on him. So yeah, he played a pretty significant role. He's kind of the person that just happens to be at a lot of different events, from being there with Abraham Lincoln when he's a lawyer to the 1840s. He's there during the Civil War. Grant actually learned that he became our 18th president at my cousin's house in Galena, Illinois.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, what happened is the telegraph company came up to General Grant and said, do you want us to hook up the telegraph wires to your home in Galena? And Grant's like, my house is on a hill, that could be a problem. And my cousin was right there, and he's like, well, why don't we just do it to my house, because I'm right around the corner from the telegraph company. So that's what they did, and Grant was there when he learned that he was elected our 18th president. And if you go to Galena, Illinois, you can go to visit Grant's house, which is a historic home, but L. Washburn's house in Galena is also a historic home.
Wow.
Yeah, you can go visit it if you
Okay, I definitely will.
I hope you do.
How do you recommend for young people to get involved in the voting process?
To get involved in the voting process, first of all, when they turn 18, the first thing I did when I turned 18, I drove to my town and I registered to vote. Nowadays, it's a lot easier. You can do it online. But just go into how to vote, Google it, and register to vote. And so that's the first step. And if you're so inclined, if you want to get involved in voting in a primary, you have to register for a particular party. So you have to kind of declare which party you want. Otherwise, you can be an independent and just vote in the general election.
Okay, all right, thank you very much. We're going to take a short break. Please stay tuned. We'll be back in a moment.
Not all County College of Morris students look like me.
Some look like me.
Or me.
Or me.
Or me.
We all come to CCM at different stages of life.
And for different reasons.
I plan to transfer to a university.
I'm training for a new career as a nurse.
But we all know one thing.
CCM is where we want to be.
So check out the website.
Check out the website.
Check out the website.
And let CCM connect learning and your life.
We're back on Spotlight Morris County with Professor Mark Washburne. Now, Professor, I understand that you have lived in this area for a very long time. Can you take us through basically your early life, where you went to school, how you got into working for County College of Morris?
Sure. I'm originally from Illinois, although when I was 6 months old, my dad, who worked for AT&T, got transferred here, and we lived in Madison until I was 2, and then we were back in Illinois until I was 13. I came here in 1969. My dad worked for AT&T in New York City, and he was an engineer, and so he was in charge of building the Basking Ridge building. I went to high school in Madison at a high school called Bailey Ellard, which is no longer there. And then I went to college at Marquette University in Milwaukee. I had a bachelor's degree in political science, and I went on and got my master's degree in political science. From there, my first job was actually in Saudi Arabia.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I lived in Jeddah, Saudi Arabia, which is right on the Red Sea. I did that for about 7 months, and then I came back and I had various business jobs. I ended up getting an MBA. So actually, when I was an adjunct, I used to teach economics and business classes. But starting in 1992, I wanted to make a career change. I had been a stockbroker, I'd done all these things, but it really wasn't me. So I decided to make a career change into teaching. I got hired to teach a world geography class at Berkeley College of Business. From there, other colleges started hiring me, and I was an adjunct for 9 years, teaching. Sometimes I would teach over 30 classes a semester.
Oh, wow.
Once a year, I should say.
Okay.
One semester, I taught 14 classes.
Yeah.
So
That's still impressive. I don't know how you
was
could do
it.
that.
And because I had an MBA, and I also had a degree in political science, and I was actually going to school for history as well at the time. I was able to teach a variety of classes. And then fortunately, in September of 2001, I know it wasn't a good time for many people,
Yes.
but I was hired full-time here at County College of Morris. And since then, I've gotten tenure, so hopefully I'll be here for a while.
Now, have you changed what you've been teaching at County College of Morris, or have you been teaching history the entire time?
Actually, when I came, I filled a person who was a history teacher. But they gave me some political science classes as well, because that's actually what my master's degree was in. And over time, we hired somebody who is a political scientist, so they didn't need me to teach as many political science classes. And pretty much I just do American history at this point.
Now, when you were younger, at what stage did you know that you want to get into political science? Did you, I know you said that.
Yeah, I was really interested in politics. In high school, I was, the Vietnam War was going on. It was the 1970s. In 1972, there was a presidential election. And Richard Nixon was running against a man named George McGovern. I was supportive of George McGovern because I was against the war in Vietnam. And in my high school, Bailey Ellard, there's about 600, 800 students. They picked me to be George McGovern. They had a mock election, so we had a debate. The one thing I remember about that debate was that my microphone stopped working. So I had to borrow the microphone of the girl who was playing Nixon, and I apologized, said, excuse me, we Democrats were not as experienced with these electronic devices as the Republicans, because obviously it was a reference to Watergate that happened that summer. So that's where I got started. I just love politics. So, I ended up getting my bachelor's and master's degree in political science. And I've always been a student of politics for the last, whatever. Ever since I've been 16 years old, I've been following politics.
Now, for while you've been at CCM since 2001, you said, how have you seen any?
I should point out, I started as an adjunct in 1995 at CCM, so I've been here since.
Okay, so since 1995.
Yep.
Have you seen any drastic changes or anything that's really caught your eye in the past since you started working here?
Yeah, there's a little thing called cell phones nowadays. I don't know if you heard about it before. But when I first started teaching, the big issue I had was that students would all be talking in the back. They all became friends, especially as the semester would go on. We still see some of that, right? But nowadays, the big issue is I'll be walking down the hall and people will just be staring at their cell phones. So it's changing how people communicate with each other, how they talk to one another. I used to teach a lot of summer classes, and I have a break in between, and it used to be that they would all just get up and talk to each other, and now I'd go break, and they'd all just be on their cell phones,
I am kind of guilty of walking into polls several times with my cell phone, so I might be one of those people. Now, I also understand that you are, I believe, the head of a running association?
Right, yes.
Yes.
Yeah, I run every day. My running streak started in 1989, so today was 10,314 days.
Oh my God.
And it was a big day for me because the day before I had tied a person who had the third longest running streak in New Jersey's history.
Congratulations.
Yes, so
That's very impressive.
I passed him today, so now I have the third longest running streak in New Jersey's history.
Are you going for first?
The guy who's first, the top two guys, their streaks are still active. And the first guy is, his streak is over 40 years. The guy who's number two, he's about 500 days. So I got a shot at him, although, Tom Allen, if you're listening, no, I don't have a shot at you. You're doing really great. But so yeah, it's just every day. My wife became a streak runner, and her streak is now 5 years.
Oh, wow.
She just hit 5 years, so she's involved in it. It's just a way to be consistent in your athleticism. I'm a member of the United States Running Streak Association, and you have to do a mile a day. Well, actually, I started before there was a streak association, and so I always do 3 miles a day. The Running Streak Association was started by a guy named John Strumsky from Maryland in 2000, and so he just took a list of all the people who had running streaks. John, in 2011, he was in his 70s, his running streak had already ended, so he asked who wanted to do it, so it came, who wanted to be the new president. It came down to me or a guy from Washington State, Seattle, and they picked me because I was willing to drive to Maryland to pick up the files. So since then, the association has really taken off. We have over 3,000 people on our Facebook page. We just automated our website and in December, and we got 200 more streaks came in. I guess it's easier to put a streak in, and it's from all around the world. People all around the world are putting in a streak, and we only there's kind of a high entry. You have to run for a year before we even list your streaks. So, but there's a lot of people who are doing it. So we have over 1,000 active running streaks. I think we have another 500 or 600 retired streaks on our list. And I'm the president, so they go through me. It's given me a lot of attention. I've been on the front page of the Wall Street Journal because of being president of this association. I was also interviewed by NPR, National Public Radio, that went nationwide. USA Today did a story on me when I became president. I've been in the Star Ledger and the Daily Record and a lot of the local newspapers because of my involvement in running every day.
And now, for the most important one, you are on Spotlight Morris County. So,
I am, yes, yeah. I mean, this is the highlight of my career. I'm going to be saying that next.
Yes, good.
Yeah.
Now, how would people get involved in this running association? Would it be through the Facebook group, or we have to contact somebody?
Yeah, well, you could go to our website at runeveryday.com, and it's really for people. People usually have a problem in that they start an exercise routine, but they don't follow through.
Yeah, I'm guilty of that, yes.
They come up with an excuse. So we changed the question from will I run that day to when can I fit it in? And really all you have to do is a mile to be part of our association. So a mile is, people can do it in 10 minutes, 12 minutes, if you're really slow, 15 minutes. But it's a short time that you take every day to keep yourself in fit shape. And for me, it's really helped out. I'm also a racer. I've done a lot of marathons. I've done, I think, 34 or 35 marathons. I'm actually doing the Boston Marathon coming up for the 14th consecutive year.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
You really run an incredible amount. I don't understand how you do it.
I run every day, and I do run marathons.
Since you said it is 1 mile, I thought it was 3 miles every day.
Well, I personally do 3 miles a day, but in order to be part of our association, you have to do a mile a day.
Okay, I know I can run 1 mile a day. I don't know if I can do 3. That might be too much for me.
Well, you can do it. It's just, if I can do it, and I'm in my 60s now, you as a young man, I'm sure could do it.
You are motivating me. I might have to start. Okay, is there anything else that you would want to say to younger students, younger people, and how they can get involved in very important political subjects or basically how they can control who we elect as our officials?
Yeah, I think especially right now, our country is going through a change, and I'm concerned about our country. So I think, get yourself involved, get a newspaper, follow what's happening in the news, and from there, see if there's any candidates you like, you can support. If it's not a person, pick an issue, something that's, that you are interested in, whether it's the environment, whether you're concerned about climate change right now, or there's, obviously guns have been a major issue because of the shootings in those schools.
Yes.
You could take a stand on that, get involved in one of those type of programs. So, there's a lot you can do if you want to get involved.
Okay, thank you very much. Now we're going to watch a musical performance created by students in CCM's broadcasting major. Take a look. We're back on Spotlight Morris County with Professor Mark Washburn. Now, Professor Washburn, so it has been quite a hectic time in the world recently. Do you have any things that you see as positive coming in the future? What do you look forward to?
Yeah, I do. Just recently, I was part of a march. There was a march in Morristown. It was also nationwide. It was concerning gun violence. I know people have different positions on guns. I think there are too many guns myself. And so there was a march in Morristown, and some 13,000 people participated in it. And for me, I was able, because I'm a politician, I was able to get on stage with the students, and it almost brought me to tears. They were just so genuine, so unique. It kind of reminded me of when I was a teenager. I was there during the Vietnam War, so it was another critical time, and my friends were passionate about politics. Not everybody, but a lot of them were. And I see the students, especially after what took place in Florida, and Florida is just the tip of the iceberg. I mean, we've had shootings going on with students, since Columbine in 1999, and probably even before that. So it's good to see students say enough is enough. And they were just so great high school students. You know, they all committed to, we're going to go out and we're going to vote, and if you're not going to follow what we're saying about guns, then we're going to vote you out of office. So to me, that was such a positive thing to hear the students talk about.
Now, I know social media has definitely played a very large part in that. So how do you see that as influencing students? And I know it's been bringing people together, but are there any other benefits of it that you see?
Yeah, social media has brought people of like mind. Sometimes it brings people of like mind that probably shouldn't.
Yes.
We've seen a reemergence of some hate groups out there, and that's not a positive. But it's also brought people who are generally concerned about our country to get together, to organize themselves, and demand of their politicians accountability and accessibility, and they want to know how these politicians are voting on certain issues. So to me, that's a positive.
Yes, I believe that through social media with politicians, they're able to reach a larger scope of people, and people
Right,
are able
sure.
to get more involved. I know for DC had the very large turnout for the
Right,
walk
yeah.
as well. I saw some of those speeches by some of the students. They were very powerful.
Similar in Morristown. I was just taken how bright these students were. It was one after another. I saw some clips from the DC, and they
Yes.
were
There was a
amazing.
12-year-old girl, I believe.
Yeah,
yes.
they were just amazing. But in Morristown, they were also amazing. These students really cared. They were very passionate, and they said, enough is enough. I should be able to go to school and not have to worry about, how I'm going to have to protect myself should a shooter comes into their school. They want to be about learning and not about, how do I hide under the desks or something like that.
Yes. Thank you very much, Professor Washburn. I'd like to thank Professor Washburn for joining us today. This concludes this week's episode of Spotlight Morris County, and we'll see you next time.